Hi, this is John Goldie. I'm doing some videos just now on independence mainly between your thumb and your fingers on your right hand, and also a little bit on your left hand. Idea is to build up some independence so that you can play solo fingerstyle guitar. I've been working on mainly blues at the moment, and the reason for that is it's obviously quite simple chord-wise, and harmony-wise as well. It's fairly straightforward. Also, by using even just one bass note, we can get used to that independence where you're playing. So we've covered that in previous videos. This video, you can see I've got an electric guitar, and the reason for this is a lot of people were asking about how this works on electric and if it's how different it is really. To be honest, it's not a huge amount different. The big advantage on the electric is we can play a little bit more like the sort of licks and the stuff we would normally play on an electric guitar. When you come to combine that with the thumb though, and you've got a bass line, that's when it becomes a little bit tricky, because obviously the blues licks that we all know, they're great on their own, but if you're trying to do something at the same time as that, it's pretty tricky. So I would start off with that. You could also maybe just occasionally bring in very simple things. Now, if you're going to do that, what I would say is that the real sort of important part of this is that if the bass does stop, it's not the end of the world, but we need to keep the groove going through it. So that can be really useful in just developing your own sense of time and your own sense of groove and feel. Obviously, blues is it's all about emotion, it's all about feel and timing and phrasing. And, you really want to be able to just do that without having to think about a bass line normally, obviously. So what we can do is, on electric specifically, is just take some really simple lines, if I base them all around the sort of 5th fret area. So obviously we already have all these kind of flicks that are around that area in the key of E. Obviously we can also play up here as well, but for the moment, if we stick to one area, it's a little bit more helpful. So when you've got the bass line going, and bear in mind that's still like this. Now you can see when I did my thumb is starting to go with me, so that's one of the things that's worth you just do it a couple of times until you get sort of comfortable with it. Because I haven't worked this out, I'm just making it up. So what I'll find is there'll be certain things that I'll play and I'll go, oh, I just need to sort of redo that and just get it comfortable with my fingers when I'm playing it. So if we start off with a really simple so go up to the A, and that's your sort of flat 7th. You can bend it on the electric, obviously would be handy. Then back to the E. Now you notice also I'm sort of starting to bring in bits of chords. So what does really help is if you know where the chord is in this position. So for example here, obviously we know that's E, A, B7. In this position though, so that would be your E chord there, which is sort of I suppose like a C shape really, and the E7 would be that shape. So we have those kind of 6 interval things in there. So they all sound nice, so that's where we could maybe bring a chord in as well. So when you've got the and then we've got and then when we've got the B chord, we've got here, so you could play the B chord there, or you could play, so that would be a like a B7 chord. I know that's probably the kind of full looking chord there. So that's a bit of a handful, so you could maybe get away with playing this note here, which is the third on the root, or you could just go to a bar chord. This is using the sixes again, back to the E. And then you could even do the sixes on the B chord. And then this one would be, you can bring the bass note in there. So this is quite an interesting area on the guitar, because the normal chords themselves, they work fine. The E7, the A7, obviously the B7. But just knowing different ways of playing the A7 chord, or the 13th or whatever, these are all lend themselves to different colours. Now that's the sort of flat 7th, this would be the 6th. So there you can sort of bring in little tiny bits of the chord, and then I played the B7 there. So what I was doing there was utilising the sort of middle of the chord. So the E7 I said was there. So the chord, the flat 7th in the chord, the dominant is there. So you could do and then you can go to the A. So when you go to the A, or 7th, or you could go to the 6th, or you can do wee chordal things. B7. Then you go back to your sort of turnaround again. The main difference here is that you're picking out single notes, so the phrasing, to combine the phrasing with the bass is much more difficult. The time thing, and just keeping in time, and also being able to know when you've done enough to get back into the bass to keep you going again. I mean, you can miss the bass out for a little bit of time. You could do entire runs, I suppose, using Okay, so that's just a little bit of messing about, using some string bending, bass notes occasionally, other times not using the bass notes, and trying to mainly stick to here, but moving about a little bit as you would do if you were playing a blues guitar solo. And the important thing here is that you put the bass in when you feel comfortable with it. But to keep in time through all this is the key factor, really. Especially when you're just like playing lines, because if you don't have drums and bass or any other musicians there, you're the only person that's keeping in time. So this is a really important thing to be able to do that. You can do it with a metronome as well, which is great. I would always recommend using metronomes, but I would say that in this case, for example, just like tapping your foot like I was doing there is really a good thing to do. And you can do this with any style of music. It doesn't need to be blues. It's just so that's what we started off on here. Would be the same as if you were doing jazz or some other style, where you literally had to try and keep in time. And it is useful because when you get with a band, obviously, you know, you might have a drummer and a bass player that maybe are fantastic. They might not be so good. They might be quite different. And your job is to try and fit in there somewhere and sound good. So the better your actual time in yourself is, the easier it is to play along with other people, whether they're great players, which is really easy, or maybe not so great players, maybe they speed up, slow down, whatever. But you should be able to adapt to that if you've got a really strong core or sense of time yourself. And also if you do work in studios and stuff, it helps with all that. If you've just got a click track, being able to groove with the click track is really important. Not just keeping time with the click track, but you've got to sort of get beyond that to the point where you're sort of grooving along and with the click track, and it sounds great just on your own without drums or bass or anything else in there. So hopefully that's been of some help. Again, you know, if you want to get in touch about anything, send me any videos. I think some people have done that already. I can have a sort of look and get back to you, maybe help with stuff like that. So until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.